Football is back, and right now Bet365 are offering a wide range of markets, including first, last or anytime goal scorers. With over 45 million members, it's the world's favourite online betting company. We've got wall-to-wall Premier League football with games being played nearly every day, and with Bet365 Bet Builder, you can combine match results, players to score, number of goals and more to create your own personalised bet. And if you can't watch all the games live, with Bet365's Match Live feature, you can follow every moment through live graphics and text. Bet365 is the world's favourite online sport betting company. The app can be downloaded from Google Play and Apple App Store. Over 18s only. Please gamble responsibly. Folks, welcome to another episode of the 59th Minute FPL podcast, which is brought to you by The Athletic. I'm Mark McGettigan. You can find me on Twitter at FPL General. I'm recording on Thursday night just after Manchester City destroyed Liverpool 4-0, which has brought Gameweek 32 to a close. And we've got another deadline fast approaching, which is at 11:30 UK time on Saturday morning. So they're going to come thick and fast now. There's probably 4 game weeks over the next 14 days, so make sure you don't miss any of those deadlines. Usual pod structure for this episode: I'll start with shoutouts and a quick game week review because I don't want to dwell on it too much, a watchlist update, Twitter questions, and I'll finish with transfers and captaincy for game week 33. If you're not yet a subscriber to The Athletic, you can get a 30-day free trial by visiting theathletic.com/FPL pod, and that's where you'll get the ad-free versions of this podcast and all of the other excellent Athletic podcasts. Shoutouts this week: we've got a few new members to the 59th Minute Club. 2 players from Aston Villa, Ezri Konsa and Connor Hourihan. Both came off in the dreaded 59th minute for 1-pointers in Game Week 32, and also a player who was in a lot of teams after the restart, Diogo Jota from Wolves, also gets the dreaded shoutout for a 1-pointer. Jota has only scored 5 points in total in the 3 games since the restart, when his strike partner Jimenez has racked up 19. So Jota has been very disappointing since the Premier League resumed. A notable mention as well for Gabriel Jesus, who was taken off, I think it was around 56 or 57 tonight, for a 1-pointer as well. So Jesus has been chopped from my watch list, got no interest there. He's not playing great and he's been taken off early as well if he does start. How did my Game Week 32 go? Not great. I knew as soon as Jimenez, my captain, blanked all the way back last Saturday that it was going to be a very long week, and that's exactly how it's panned out. It's a red arrow. I managed to get 58 points, which is not awful, but every player that I don't own seemed to return this week, the likes of Aubameyang and Pulisic, so I had to just sit back and watch my red arrow get bigger and bigger. So in the end, I think I'm going to go from around 33k overall and drop about 10,000 places to 42k. So 6 game weeks to go, 42k overall. I would love to get a top 10k finish, but my team is pretty template. I've got lots of the popular, highly owned players. So I think I might have to be a bit bold over the last 6 game weeks if I'm going to get that top 10k finish. So you may see a few maybe more exciting transfers from me over the next couple of weeks than what I would usually make, just to spice things up for the last 6 game weeks and hopefully break into that top 10k by game week 38. In terms of what did I do for game week 32, I had 2 free transfers. I ended up doing Robertson out for Aurier, which actually turned out as a positive because Aurier scored a massive 1 points and Robertson scored 0. I also got rid of Harvey Barnes for Anthony Martial. Martial was pretty disappointing in the last game week, but hopefully that Bournemouth at home looks really tasty now for my triple up of Martial, Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. As I mentioned, Captain Jimenez was very frustrating. If you've been listening to me for a while, you'll know the thing I hate most about FPL is captaincy. So Captain Jimenez blank is another one for my scrapbook. Which players performed for me? Only 4. The usual suspects: Nick Pope in goal, absolute hero; Matt Doherty, another hero; and the big guys, Bruno Fernandes and Kevin De Bruyne. So it was blanks from 7 of my players: Jimenez, Rashford, Calvert-Lewin. So nothing from the strikers: Salah, Martial, Trent and Aurier. So overall, a pretty disappointing Game Week 32 for me. So hopefully Game Week 33 will be better. A quick watch list update now. Not too many exciting players added to the watch list this week. It's more about the players I've removed. I've removed some pretty high profile players that I'm no longer interested in, but I'll start with the players I've added, just 3. First one is a Wolves defender, Johnny Otto, at 5.4 million. He's only owned by 1.2% of managers. Since the restart, his scores have been 6, 8 and 12. So very consistent scoring there from Johnny. Obviously, I've got Doherty. A lot of people have Saiss and Bowley and Patricio as well. I think Johnny Otto has to be in the mix now as well if you're looking to bring in a Wolves defender or even a second Wolves defender. Wolves, as we know, like Manchester United, have very good fixtures. Another defender added to the watch list this week, 4.3 million. He's been on and off my watch list for most of the season. Don't think he's ever made it into my squad. Charlie Taylor at Burnley. Again, very low ownership, 2.2%. Like Pope, it's back-to-back clean sheets for Charlie Taylor. Just a very nice cheap asset. You can stick him on your bench or you can rotate him with another cheap defender or midfielder. The only looking at Burnley's fixtures, they got Liverpool away in Game Week 35 and they've got Wolves at home in Game Week 36. But apart from that, Burnley have a pretty good final 6 fixtures, or four good fixtures out of 6 to finish this season. So Charlie Taylor is a nice cheap option there. And the final player I've added to the watch list this week is a West Ham attacker, Jared Bowen, another player who's been on and off this watch list for most of the season. He got 2 assists against Chelsea, which brings him back onto my radar. He's only 6.4 million and he's only owned by 0.1% of managers. Looking back, he started the last 3 games since the games have resumed. He also started the 2 games before lockdown as well. So it's 5 consecutive starts now for Jared Bowen. Manchester United away in Game Week 37 is the only really tricky fixture that West Ham have. So looking at it, I think they've got 5 out of 6 of the, 5 of the last 6 fixtures are favourable, where you could start someone like Jared Bowen and be hopeful of some points. So he's on my radar as well. Now, more importantly, the players that I've removed this week. First one, Eddie Nketiah at Arsenal. There had been, a lot of people were starting to eye him up as a cheap third forward. I don't think he started the FA Cup and he didn't start the league game then afterwards. And I think looking at Arsenal's last 3 league games, he's only started 1. So I think he's still fine, I think, for the bench. But I don't think he's someone you can rely on to start any week, because there's a very good chance he'll just get a cameo appearance. When it's, looking at that price range of Nketiah, around 4.4, 4.5, I think Mason Greenwood is the guy to go for. But obviously, Greenwood takes up a very valuable Manchester United slot. So, if you're someone who has Bruno, Rashford, Martial like me, or if you've got a defender or David De Gea, it's quite hard to fit Greenwood in. You might prefer spending extra cash on the more expensive United players. But, there's no doubt Greenwood is excellent value. And I think he is the pick of the bunch now, around the 4.5 million mark among the forwards. Removed a couple of Leicester players from the watch list as well. I've not really got any interest in Leicester now for the rest of the season. I don't like their fixtures for a start, and they just haven't been great over the last couple of weeks. Jamie Vardy is gone. 3 games, 3 blanks. It's just not good enough for a player who costs almost £10 million. James Maddison is gone as well. I think he had a bit of an injury niggle and he didn't start during the week, but he did come on for the second half, and I was a bit surprised today looking back on it. I put a tweet out about it. In Maddison's last 16 appearances, he's blanked 15 times. Absolutely crazy for a player who, when you watch Leicester and when you watch him, he often looks good in terms of FPL. He often has good stats as well. So 15 blanks in the last 16 for Maddison caught me by surprise today, and that's another reason why he's gone from my watch list, and I've got no interest in him or Leicester for that matter. Paul Pogba is gone as well, because I think there's possibly 7 or 8 Manchester United players that I would rather own than Pogba at the moment. He's playing too deep for my liking. So obviously Bruno, Martial, Rashford and Greenwood, I would rate all 4 of those guys higher than Pogba. And also defensively, they keep churning out clean sheets. So I think De Gea, Wan-Bissaka and Harry Maguire are very good options as well, that are actually better options than Pogba at the moment. So Pogba is gone from the watch list, as is Patrick Van Aanholt. I love this guy. Most fantasy managers who have been playing FPL for a couple of seasons love this guy, particularly at this stage of the season. He tends to finish the season very strongly, but as much as I love him, I just can't bring myself to pay 5.6 million for a Crystal Palace defender. And again, looking at fixtures, it's pretty tricky for Crystal Palace for the rest of the season. So I'm going to avoid him. So, I mean, if you do keep him or buy him for the last part of the season, enjoy those 15 pointers that will no doubt turn up between now and Gameweek 38. The final couple of players that are gone are Neil Maupay at Brighton and Mason Mount at Chelsea, quite simply because both players didn't start at the weekend, and I don't like that. Obviously, these are unprecedented times, and every player is going to be probably benched at some point, but I just don't like seeing players getting benched. To me, that puts question marks on whether they're going to play every game between now and the end of the season, and there's more reasons than that. Quite simply, not really interested in Brighton players. And in terms of Mount, I think Pulisic is by far and away the best Chelsea asset to go for now. Pulisic is probably right at the top of my most wanted list this week, which I'll talk about more when it comes to my transfers at the end of the podcast. So that's the watch list wrapped up ahead of Game Week 33. Harry's sponsors the 59th Minute podcast. Harry's was founded by Jeff and Andy, two ordinary guys who were sick and tired of overpriced razors. Jeff and Andy knew there was only one way to ensure quality, so they bought their own factory. And now, by taking less profit, Harry's offers great quality products for a fair price. Their amazing quality blades are now almost half the price of the leading 5-blade brand. Harry's trial set includes everything you need for a close, comfortable shave. Weighted ergonomic handle, 5 precision engineered blades, rich lather and shave gel, and a travel blade cover. As a listener of the 59th Minute podcast, you can start shaving with Harry's today by claiming your trial set for £3.95. Support our podcast and get your set delivered to you, including a razor handle, 5-blade cartridge, foam and shave gel, and a travel blade cover by going to harrys.com/the 59th minute right now. That's harrys.com/the 59th minute. Thanks as always to everyone who sent in the questions on Twitter this evening. I'm going to pick out the best ones here, which should cover the main talking points going into this weekend's game week. First one came in from Alex Ball. Alex asks, what is my preferred 3 Manchester United players now? So as I mentioned, I've got the triple attack, Martial, Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. But I don't think that is the 3 I prefer at the moment, having another game week's worth of information. They keep churning out the clean sheets. I think there's a lot of value in the likes of De Gea, Wan-Bissaka and Harry Maguire. So if I had a clean slate this week, I think I'd be going for one defender. Bruno is obviously a given. If I had to choose between Martial and Rashford, I think that's a really tricky one. But I think just given that he's out of position, obviously extra point for a goal, picks up the point for a clean sheet as well, I think we'd go for Martial, who's arguably more explosive as well than Rashford. I think Rashford's not as appealing now when he doesn't have penalties, so I would go Bruno, I would go Martial, and again I still think Maguire and Wan-Bissaka is a bit of a coin toss. Wan-Bissaka has been the hero the last couple of weeks, getting 2 assists, but Maguire, he's getting his head on quite a few of Bruno's corners. I think he had a goal ruled out. So I think it's only a matter of time before we see Harry Maguire on the score sheet as well. And Wan-Bissaka is not going to keep up that return of assists. So I think I would probably go Maguire, go after them goals. So Maguire, Bruno and Martial would be the ideal triple up if I had a clean slate this week. But obviously, Bournemouth this weekend. So I'm very hopeful that my 3 attackers absolutely smash the Bournemouth defence. Second question came in from FPL Crate Digger. Is 4-5-1 now a viable formation until the end of the season? The short answer is yes. It seems very suddenly there seems to be not that many attractive strikers. I updated my watch list going into this weekend and I've only got 1 striker on it. I think it's Danny Ings. So I've got Jimenez, I've got Calvert-Lewin and I've got Rashford. And then Ings is the only striker on my watch list. And that's the first time this season that I've only had 1 striker on my watch list. There's usually at least 5 or 6 there. There's just very few that I'm interested in. I took Gabriel Jesus off it this evening as well, after he was taken off before 60 minutes. Not only for that reason, but I just don't don't think he's passed the eye test recently either. He's a big drop off from Aguero, and there's no guarantee that he's going to start every game. So because there's not many strikers I like, I'm looking possibly to move away from 3 strikers down to 2 strikers. I think if I was on a wildcard this week, I would be going 3-5-2 and loading up the midfield with big hitters, the likes of Pulisic, who I don't have, and alongside the KDBs and the Salahs and the Brunos. So I think 3-5-2 is a great formation for the next few weeks. So I think 4-5-1 is justified as well, especially when you've got these guys like Greenwood and Nketiah. You can play an unorthodox formation that maybe you wouldn't usually play. I think 5 midfielders is the key. If you can get 5, big hitting attacking midfielders, and then whether you go 2 strikers or 4 defenders, I think you can just decide which you prefer. I still think there's a lot of value in defence as well. We're seeing a lot of the big teams, the Manchester Uniteds and the Wolves, churning out clean sheets. So they're quite predictable at the moment, the clean sheets. So yeah, I think 4 defenders is perfectly justified, and just 1 striker. Who would that striker be? It could be Jimenez, it could be Rashford. Apart from that, there's not that many I like. Even, Calvert-Lewin is on the chopping block for me. Again, I'll come back to him when I talk about my transfers. So yeah, 4-5-1 I think is viable. 3-5-2 I think is the one I would like to have if I can get there somehow over the next week or two. Question from FF Thinker. Which Manchester City and Liverpool players are you likely to hold for the rest of the season? So which ones am I likely to hold? I've got 3. I've got 2 Liverpool and 1 City. I've got KDB. He goes nowhere. Just watching that Manchester City-Liverpool game tonight, he could have easily had 25 to 30 FPL points. Absolutely going nowhere. He stays all season. The Liverpool guys are the ones I've got the question marks over. So it was a nice big fat 0-pointer from Alexander-Arnold this evening. Pretty sure that's probably the first time that's ever happened this season anyway. Salah, you're not going to judge Liverpool on that City game after they've been celebrating. Looks like they've been over-celebrating for the last week, judging on that performance. But I've got question marks over TAA. I'm not going to say I'm going to keep him for the rest of the season. I'll certainly be keeping him for Aston Villa this weekend. Probably keep Salah for that fixture as well, and then just reassess things. If it's a case that we see a lot of rotation against Aston Villa, which I think could happen, especially now that most of the first team players got at least 60-70 minutes and were ran ragged by Man City tonight. They're going to be absolutely shattered after that game. So I do expect a couple of changes against Aston Villa, which is quite scary, especially when it comes to captaining a Liverpool player this weekend, which I'll talk about later as well. So for me, KDB stays. Salah, I think, will probably go at some point, but it won't be this weekend. And Trent will stay for the season as long as he doesn't get rotated quite a lot over the next week or two. Question from FPL Goat. Which Manchester City player or players to consider alongside KDB? And the GOAT mentions Mahrez, Foden, Sterling and Jesus. So it's probably a good time to answer this question after watching City absolutely tear Liverpool apart. So I've only got KDB. I would, City have some amazing fixtures, and they're on fire at the moment. They can blow anybody away. I mean, if they can put 4 past Liverpool, they can put 8 or 9 past somebody on their day over the next couple of weeks. So I would like to get a second Man City player, and I'm still leaning towards Mahrez. I like that he was benched against Liverpool, so I think that makes him more likely to start at the weekend. I think I like Foden a lot more after watching him again tonight as well. The guy is a special player, and Pep seems to be using this period to give him a lot of game time and help him to develop ahead of next season. So I think Foden's 5.2 million. I think that's superb value. Now, I think he causes you a headache though if you get him. Do you trust him to put him in your starting 11, or do you put him as first sub? I think after tonight, if you own Foden, I think you got to start him. I don't think he's a player you put on your bench. You just treat him like another Man City attacker. You forget he's 5.2 million. You treat him like an 8 million, 9 million Man City attacker, and you just start him. And if you get 1-pointers, so be it. You could get a 15-pointer the week after. So I like Mahrez. I like Foden. I love Sterling as well. Absolutely, huge points against Liverpool. The problem with Sterling is he's quite expensive, so I think for me to get him would probably mean losing Salah, which I'm not ready to do just yet. And Jesus, I just wouldn't go near him. He just hasn't looked good, getting taken off early, and again, no guarantee that he's going to start every game. So for me, Mahrez for me is the number one preference alongside KDB. I'd probably put Foden number 2 now, and then Sterling number 3. But Sterling is only number 3 because he's very expensive. If they were all the same price, I'd probably be leaning Sterling number 1. But Sterling is very tricky to get in. I think all 3 are very viable options. I don't think I'd bother with any of the others. I think those are the 3 to look at: Mahrez, Foden, and Sterling alongside KDB. Question from FPL for the King. A triple captaincy question. So there's quite a few managers who still have the chip left and they're wondering when they should play it. And FPL for the King is asking about this week, Gameweek 33. Should they use triple captaincy on a Manchester United player at home to Bournemouth, who just shipped 4 goals to Newcastle? And another option is using triple captaincy on a Liverpool player at home to a pretty poor Aston Villa side, although Villa have been better defensively since the restart. So what's my answer to this? I think this week it's a viable option. I don't think I would use triple captaincy on a Liverpool player after they've played City, and I expect a couple of changes against Aston Villa. So it could be a case you triple captain Mane or Salah, and then you get the team sheet at the weekend and they're on the bench. You can't really be surprised if that happens. So that would be enough to scare me away from triple captaincy on a Liverpool player. But I think someone like Bruno Fernandes or Martial or even Rashford, I think you can take a punt with the triple captaincy on that this weekend, just because of the opponent. And Manchester United have been one of the better sides since the game returned. So who would I go for? Probably Bruno Fernandes. Penalty, set pieces, can score goals from open play. And I fully expect United to get 3 or 4 against Bournemouth. So yeah, I think it's a good option. Again, I haven't looked ahead at future game weeks. You've got to weigh it up. You've got to weigh up Manchester United against Bournemouth with maybe a couple of fixtures later down the line, like some Man City, and maybe Chelsea. These teams that might have very good fixtures later on. Norwich, Aston Villa, Bournemouth. These are the teams you probably want to target with your triple captaincy if you've got it left. But I certainly wouldn't stop anyone from doing it on a Manchester United player against Bournemouth. Just remember, I am a Manchester United fan, so always take anything I say about United players in FPL with a pinch of salt and make your own mind up on that. Question from Puskar. Very good question, this one. Which 3 strikers to get on wildcard? So this kind of goes back to what I was saying. There's probably not 3 strikers I would want on a wildcard, so I think I would go 3-5-2 and go with a Greenwood or an Nketiah or a Connolly. Or maybe even a Musette now after he scored tonight. But I do think Greenwood is the best option if you're willing to sacrifice another Manchester United player to have him. Which strikers would I get on a wildcard? I still have a lot of faith in Jimenez, so I would keep him. I would probably go Jimenez Rashford and go 3-5-2. Again, if I'm going Rashford, that means I've got Bruno. I've probably got a Manchester United defender, so I probably don't have space for Greenwood. So you're probably going to have to settle for someone like Nketiah or Connolly then. I still think those guys are good value. They're going to be on your bench and hopefully you won't have to rely on them very often. So I think Jimenez, Rashford are still the preferred 2 strikers for me. Last question before I move on to captaincy and transfers came in from Mark Cram. A question about Calvert-Lewin. A question I am asking myself this week as well. Mark asks, should we stick with Calvert-Lewin for the Spurs fixture, a poor Spurs defence, or should we twist after 3 blanks? And if so, who is the best replacement for Calvert-Lewin? So I think this is team dependent. I'm losing patience with Calvert-Lewin. I think it's fine to get rid of him now. I'm in a tricky situation. I've only got 1 free transfer and I've got very little cash in the bank, so I can't really make a nice upgrade. I would, if I had 2 free transfers, I think the ideal replacement for Calvert-Lewin is not a striker, it's a midfielder. I think it's Pulisic ahead of that Watford game at home. So I think for people who have 2 free transfers, or if you're willing to take a -4, which I may be persuaded into before the deadline, is to move from Calvert-Lewin to Pulisic. So going from 3 strikers to 2 strikers and getting the Chelsea man in who's on fire at the moment. And who I would really like to own. And, his ownership is still very low in the overall scheme of things. I think it's only 6 or 7%. So it's a good time to get on Pulisic if you can. So, I'll come back to that when it comes to my transfers. But, I'm kind of snookered. I need a -4 to get rid of Calvert-Lewin, which I don't really like. I think if I wanted to get Pulisic, I would probably either need to get rid of one of the midfielders that I don't want to sell, or it would probably actually be a -8 because I can't do DCL to someone like Nketiah and Saka up to Pulisic. I'm probably about 0.5 short for the -4 there, so it probably would end up being a -8 for me. But certainly, if you've got two frees, I think you can let Calvert-Lewin go, and if you're willing to take a -4, I think that's fine as well. But if you do sell him, hopefully I benefit from his goals against Spurs if I do decide to keep him.
Hello, I'm James Richardson, host of the Totally Football Show, now part of the Athletics Podcast Network. We're going to be here following all the action as the 2020 football season reaches its belated conclusion. And if you're an Athletics subscriber, you can now hear exclusive ad-free versions of our show on the Athletic app. And don't worry, if you're not a subscriber, you can still listen to us for free with the occasional word from our sponsor by searching for the Totally Football Show on Apple, Spotify, and all the usual podcast places. The Totally Football Show with me, James Richardson, still totally free and now totally ad-free on The Athletic.
Gameweek 33 captaincy and transfers now. Captaincy, first of all, as I mentioned, I think it's probably going to be a straight shootout between Manchester United players and Liverpool players at the top of the captaincy polls this week. United are at home to Bournemouth and Liverpool are at home to Aston Villa. Now, I mentioned possible rotation for Liverpool. That scares me off Salah, so I think I'm probably going to lean towards Bruno Fernandes for my captaincy this week. I've got Martial and Rashford as options as well, but at the moment the big C is on Bruno Fernandes after his amazing performance during the week. Probably Salah vice captaincy for me then. There's a couple of other options too. I think anyone who does have Pulisic, I'm blowing Pulisic's trumpet quite a bit here, even though I don't have him. I think if you do have him, at home to Watford is probably one of the better differential captaincy options this week. And Manchester City are away to Southampton, and watching them against Liverpool, I'm expecting plenty of goals from Man City over the next couple of weeks. It's just trying to pin down who's going to play and who's going to score those goals. But again, if you're looking to try something different and make up a bit of ground, the likes of Mahrez, Sterling, KDB, these guys I think are pretty solid options as well. But for me, I don't think I'll be looking past Manchester United at home to Bournemouth. I just can't look past the fixture, given how poor Bournemouth were against Newcastle during the week. So for me, I think it'll be Bruno Fernandes. He is the dream FPL player. He's a midfielder, penalty, set pieces, can score from open play. So many avenues to points there with Bruno Fernandes. In terms of my transfers, what am I going to do? I mentioned I've only got one free one, so I can't really do what I would like to do. I'll think long and hard before the deadline about a -4, which would take out Calvert-Lewin and get a midfielder, most likely Pulisic. But I think most likely what I'll do, even though Game Week 32 was quite disappointing, my team on paper looks pretty solid for Game Week 33. So I'll do what I most often do, is bank the transfer, give myself another week of information, and then do a little bit of surgery the following week with 2 free transfers, and maybe add another one in for a -4. Mahrez is very tempting, as I mentioned as well, but to get him in for free this week, I would have to lose Salah, Bruno Fernandes or KDB, and I don't think I'm willing to do that. So for me, most likely a banking of my transfer this week, and then a bit of surgery for Game Week 34. I think that's everything covered ahead of Game Week 33 to help you with your transfers and your captaincies and everything else. Thank you as always for taking the time to listen. If you'd like to support me and the podcast, you can check out my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/FPL General. The start of a new month is always the best time to sign up because you can try it for the rest of July. And just before the 1st of August, you can decide whether you want to go through with your pledge or not. So before the end of the season, a good time to check it out to see if it's something that interests you for next season. Any questions about that, just send me a direct message on Twitter. Keep an eye out for another podcast episode, which will drop on Monday. So I'm going to record late Sunday night and get a podcast out on Monday to preview Game Week 34. So you keep an eye out for that one. Keep an ear out for it as well. And all I'm left to say is best of luck to all of you this weekend in Game Week 33. Best of luck to myself as well. I need it after a bad Game Week 32. So hopefully we can bounce back and start heading towards that top 10k. Talk to you all soon, folks.